Okay, so imagine this. You're on this small Caribbean island, Saint Lucia, and you start to realize its history isn't just in, the old buildings or the stories people tell. It's literally written into the genes of the people living there. It's not really just geography we're talking about. It's this fascinating meeting point of history and biology.
It really is quite something. Researchers are saying the genetic makeup in Saint Lucia, well, it's one of those complex, maybe even surprising mixes they've found anywhere in the Caribbean.
Mm.
These genes, they tell a pretty profound story. We're talking slavery, colonization, but also survival, incredible resilience.
Right.
And what's really interesting is how this scientific discovery is, it's kind of celebrated in some circles, but at the same time, it's sparking some pretty serious social and ethical debates, too.
So that's where we're headed in this deep dive. Not just looking at a map of St. Lucia, but exploring within the people themselves, following genetic trails that no ordinary map could ever show. Our mission today is really to unpack why the St. Lucian genetic profile is so unique. We want to uncover the surprising details and sort of the layers of meaning that we found in the source materials you shared. Let's trace this remarkable genetic patchwork together. Now, when you look at St. Lucia's past, historians always point out its turbulent colonial history, right? Back and forth between French and British rule.
Constantly. 14 times, I think it was.
Exactly. And we usually think about how that affected, say, language or culture, but it turns out it actually shapes the island's DNA in really surprising ways.
It's quite astonishing how clearly you can see it in the genetic studies. You've got about 85% of Saint Lucians showing significant African ancestry, which is, well, it's a direct and very sobering reflection of the sheer scale of the transatlantic slave trade's impact.
85%. Wow.
But then alongside that, you see these distinct European genetic signatures, mainly French and British, making up maybe 10 to 12% of the ancestry.
Okay.
And if you look closely, there are also these small but still significant traces of indigenous Caribbean ancestry. It's less than 3%, but it's there, detectable in some families.
So the DNA itself is like a living archive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's whispering stories of pretty much every major event the island has lived through. It's unfiltered history, in a way.
That's a really powerful way to think about it, a historical blueprint in the genes. But okay, if the genes are telling this incredible story about the past, what else are they telling us about, say, the present-day lives of St. Lucians, especially when it comes to health?
Yeah, that's the crucial next question, isn't it? How do these historical migrations and the adaptations that came with them still influence health today?
Yeah.
We'll take type 2 diabetes, for example. St. Lucia has some of the highest rates in the Caribbean. We're talking over 12% of adults.
That's really high.
It is. And part of that seems linked to specific genetic predispositions, which then, interact with modern lifestyle factors, diet, activity levels, that sort of thing.
Right, the gene-environment interactor.
Precisely. But then flip side, you see certain gene variants, largely of African origin, that clearly provided resilience against tropical diseases like malaria, which makes perfect sense from an evolutionary standpoint, given the historical environment.
Okay, so protection against malaria.
Yes. But here's the paradox, and it's striking. Some of those same variants that protected against malaria are also linked to higher risks for things like hypertension and cardiovascular problems today.
Wait, really? The same genes?
It seems so. It's like a biological trade-off playing out over generations. The very genes that helped people survive ancient challenges might be contributing to modern health issues.
That's, wow, a double-edged sword, literally written into their DNA.
You could put it that way. It makes the island's specific genetic makeup incredibly important for public health research, yet, as we'll see, it's often overlooked.
That's profound and incredibly complex. And I have to imagine with findings like these findings that touch so directly on identity, history, legacy, there must be some complicated conversations, maybe even disagreements happening within St. Lucia itself. This can't just be a purely scientific discussion.
Oh, it's definitely not just scientific, not at all. This is where it gets really nuanced and, frankly, quite sensitive. You have significant voices arguing that putting too much emphasis on genetic ancestry could, maybe inadvertently, reinforce racial stereotypes.
Okay.
Especially in a society that already deals with issues like colorism, discrimination based on skin tone, even within the same broader ethnic group. There's a real concern there about deepening harmful social divisions.
That makes sense.
And then there are questions about the ethics of it all.
Yeah.
Foreign researchers coming in, studying St. Lucian DNA, who benefits? Concerns are raised about potential commercialization, about profit without adequate benefit sharing going back to local communities, fears of what some people are calling genetic exploitation.
Genetic exploitation, meaning their biological heritage becomes a commodity.
That's the fear, that it could be commodified without fair agreements, without strong data privacy protections, without real community partnership.
So it's clear this isn't just biology, it's deeply human, tangled up with history, with power dynamics that exist today. Politically, it sounds like there's a debate about identity itself. Should St. Lucians define themselves primarily through their amazing culture, their shared history, their lived experiences, or should genetics now play a bigger role in that conversation?
Exactly that tension, the tension between what science reveals and what matters for societal values, for community identity. It makes this whole story about genes way more than just biology. It really gets to the heart of questions about power, who owns this knowledge, and what constitutes national pride.
Yeah, deep questions.
And looking beyond the island itself, researchers are stressing that the St. Lucia gene story has global significance too. Because think about this, on a worldwide scale, Caribbean genetics are massively underrepresented in research databases.
How underrepresented are we talking?
Shockingly so. Less than 0.5% of the DNA data in global genomic datasets comes from Caribbean populations. Less than 0.5%.
That's a huge gap.
It's a massive blind spot in our understanding of human genetic diversity.
So, logically, including St. Lucian DNA with its unique mix in global research could potentially unlock really critical insights, right? Maybe for disease prevention, for developing more personalized treatments that actually work for a wider range of people,
Yeah,
understanding how humans adapt to tropical places.
absolutely. The potential is immense. Yet, despite this incredible richness, this complex genetic story, the island often just gets overlooked in major global health studies.
It really feels like a profound missed opportunity on a global scale.
So if we try to pull the main threads together here, what we're seeing is that the St. Lucia gene really is like a unique genetic fingerprint of survival. It's this deep blend of African resilience, those specific European traces we talked about, and even the echoes of the indigenous past, all woven into the nation's DNA. Scientists see its potential perhaps to help shape future medicine. Historians see it as this living archive of a complex colonial past.
And crucially, as you pointed out, the critics and community members remind us that this isn't neutral, that without really focusing on protecting local identity, ensuring rights are respected, making sure practices are equitable, well, science could unintentionally slide into exploitation, which brings in all those vital ethical issues, the debates about power, about ownership, about pride that are so central here.
They're absolutely central. And circling back to the global picture, that underrepresentation we mentioned, it's not just a statistic. It means we're missing out. Including St. Lucian DNA and Caribbean DNA more broadly could genuinely unlock critical insights, disease prevention, better treatments, understanding human adaptation. And yet this island, with this incredibly rich, nuanced genetic story, just isn't getting the attention it warrants in many of these global research efforts.
It really leaves you thinking. So let me pose this to you, our listener, reflecting on everything we've unpacked. What do you think? Should this unique genetic heritage be primarily framed as a source of national pride for St. Lucians? Or should the main focus stay on culture, on shared history, on the lived experiences of the people today? Where does the balance lie?